guys. Welcome back to Undisputed Interviews. Today's guest is UFC featherweight contender, or prospect, I should say, Kyle Nelson. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing good.
You know, obviously, big fan. I've been watching you for a minute. I think the first fight I watched of you was, I believe the one, I forget his name, but it was a draw. Du Hoi Choi, I believe is his name.
Yep.
That was the first fight I watched you, and I was like, okay. I knew a lot of people were picking against you in that fight. But after I was like, all right, this dude, I think he has some potential to really make a run. Because you're not, are you? You're pretty young in your career. You haven't had that many fights compared to like some of the other people in the featherweight division. Do you feel like you're just now hitting your prime?
Yeah, I think my skill set was always there. I think just putting it together in the UFC. I think I'm in my prime as far as that.
Yes, sir. I mean, obviously, your last fight, Steve Garcia, back in September, I believe, on the Gilbert Burns Sean Brady card. If I'm not mistaken, it was the co-main event, right?
Uh I don't think it was quite that high, but we were on the main card.
Main card. Obviously the fight didn't go your way. Do you watch that fight back and see things that you did wrong that maybe you overlooked, thinking he wasn't that good in the wrestling or in close distance? Like, what do you feel that you learned from that fight?
I think everything went great. It was going according to plan. I took his back, went for the arm bar. He was able to escape. And I think it was going great up until some of the illegal elbows to the back of my head and my neck and stuff and spine. So after that, it was more or less just trying to recover from the illegal shots. And then just the ref ended up stopping before I was able to recover from them.
Yeah, I mean, when that was happening, were you able to say anything to ref, or were you just like, let me get out of this position and then I'll say something in between rounds?
Yeah, I mean, normally you don't talk to the ref. Like they give you pretty specific instructions before the fight, not to because you say anything, it can be taken as a verbal tap. So I know like Steve Garcia was going once he kind of landed the illegal shots, he kind of really started to unload. So I knew if I had made any noise to the ref, Steve was like in the middle of a flurry, the ref may take that as a verbal tap.
Yeah, did you say something to him after the fight, or were you kind of just like, the fight's over?
The fight
Like,
was over, so it wasn't until afterwards we talked to the athletic commission came back, and they were talking to me about the illegal elbows and stuff like that. The UFC medical team, a bunch of the team from the UFC came back and talked to me about the illegal blows. Then we just kind of followed their instruction as far as what we should do in regards to appealing the illegal blows,
mm-hmm.
and we went through that process, and then the commission kind of agreed that there was illegal elbows, but because the ref didn't acknowledge them in the fight, then it doesn't. There's nothing can be done about it.
Man, is that now a fight you want to have again in the future? You want that
Yeah, I
rematch?
mean, I'm still skill wise. I think skill wise, fitness wise, cardio wise, I think I'm better than Steve Garcia in every area. And now that I know, the ref's not really going to call any illegal blows, I'll know I'll have to defend, the back of my head and my spine and defend better against illegal strikes.
Yes, sir. I mean, yeah, I mean, I believe you were the underdog in that fight. Was that, like you said, you believe that your MMA skills are just better overall? Were you surprised that you were the underdog, or do you not really care about the betting odds?
No, I don't really care about the betting odds. I think I've been the underdog in I think every single one of my fights.
Mm-hmm.
So in that fight, I was coming off of a 3 fight win streak, and
Yeah.
then before that was the draw. And I mean, I was supposed to be fighting Calvin Cater, a much higher ranked opponent. And so yeah, I mean that's just I guess the way the rankings go, or I mean
Yes,
the
sir.
betting odds and stuff.
Yeah, because I know like some other fighters at press conferences or media days they're usually like, "Why am I the underdog? I've done this, this, and this against that this opponent hasn't done." So I don't know why people care.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. It's almost better when I'm on the underdog because then my fans, that when they bet on me, they make more money. So
That's very true, very true. I mean, another fight you had recently, oh, not recently, a little over a year ago, but Bill Algeo back in Atlantic City, you won that fight first round knockout. Algeo recently just retired. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Aljo was I think he was a great fighter. And yeah, I think he was on a few fight win streak. When I met him again, I was the underdog in that one.
Yeah.
I was able to win kind of early in the first round, and then I think he fought Korean Superboy after that, and then he got caught with the big shot, and I think he's got a gym as well, so maybe he just decided to focus more on the gym.
Yeah, I remember when you fought Bill Algeo. I was in my room watching it, and when you won, I screamed and accidentally woke up my mom, and she was like,
Yeah.
"Be quiet, kid." And I was like, "My bad, my bad." But that was cool. I was like, "Dang," because I knew a lot of people were picking against you in that fight, and I didn't understand why.
Mm.
But obviously you're an MMA fighter, but how did you discover the UFC and MMA? Like what clicked in your mind, or what did you see that made you really want to do this for a career?
I was into boxing when I was younger, and then when the first season of The Ultimate Fighter came out, I started watching that on Spike TV and stuff, and just kind of decided to go that route.
Uh, did you start watching before the Ultimate Fighter, or like afterwards?
No, basically, when the first season came out, that's when I was the first time I heard of MMA and the UFC. So I watched that season, and then after that, I started watching the UFC and stuff.
Well, what were your thoughts? Do you remember your initial reaction to the Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner fight?
I thought it was a great fight. I was still just learning about mixed martial arts and the wrestling side of things and the jujitsu and all that stuff. So I was definitely super intrigued and yeah, I thought it was a great fight.
Yeah, I mean, when you started, was the ultimate goal get to the UFC, or was it just do the best I can wherever I land? I know I've committed it by the end of my career.
Yeah, no, it was definitely get to the UFC.
Yes, sir. Do you have a goal? Like right now, when you look at your career, is the ultimate goal for you at least is become the world champion?
Yeah, I mean, champion would be the end game kind of goal. Right now I'm focusing more on short-term goals, so
Yeah.
it's just about getting the next fight lined up, making sure I'm prepared for it and I get back on the winning track.
I mean, yeah, you just said short-term goals and preparing for your next fight. I believe it was Burt MMA. It could be the wrong source, but I believe he reported, I want to say a week or two ago, that you were looking to come back June, July, summertime. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good timeline. I did kind of want to get on the May 10th card
May
here in
10th.
Montreal, but they we talked to the UFC and there just wasn't room to get me on that one. So I think I'll focus on some training and stuff, and yeah, maybe end of summer, beginning of fall, look to fight again.
Do you have an opponent in mind?
I mean, I was calling out Nate Landwehr. I've been calling him out for like a couple years or something, and nothing's really come of it. And then he's lost the last couple fights, so
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something the UFC would do. But I mean, like still, like Cub Swanson was always somebody on my radar, but I'm coming off a loss now, even if it was from illegal blows and stuff. So I don't really have a position to start requesting fights. But yeah, I definitely like to
Yeah.
fight soon.
I think you and a Billy Cortillo rematch would be cool. I know last time it didn't go your way, but I feel like you both are coming off losses and you both are exciting. I think that would be an amazing rematch.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the fight with Billy was early in my UFC career,
Mm-hmm.
and skill wise, I feel like I was getting the better of him in the first round and stuff like that. And it came down to cardio, where it was
Yeah.
really I wasn't quite as accustomed to the UFC and the weight cut. My nutrition wasn't quite 100%. And then once I was able to kind of fix all that, that's when I was able to kind of go on the run with a bunch of wins and stuff. So I think now that I've got all that stuff dialed in, I think it would be a good matchup for me.
Yeah, I mean, like I said last time, obviously the Billy Cortillo fight didn't go away, but I also feel like you guys have similar styles. I mean, in most of you guys' fights, it's not really wrestling; it's just not stand and bang, but it's usually on the feet. Do you still feel that, like you said, you were getting the better of him last fight? Do you still feel like you have the better skills that if this fight were to happen again, you just the same thing would happen. You just be able to get the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think stand up wise, I'm more technical. I think I've got more power, and he's more of a cardio guy. So he's just trying to put punches out there and volume and stuff to try and wear his opponents out. Whereas again, I think I'm a little more technical. I've got more power. He tries to wrestle as well to kind of help fatigue guys, and
Hmm.
I felt like shut his wrestling down really well in our last fight, and my wrestling and jits has only gotten better. So.
What did you make of his last fight with Cub Swanson? Obviously, you just mentioned both of them that you would like, or at least Cub Swanson that you'd be open to fighting. But what did you make of that fight?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a good fight scene. I think Cubs' skill set's just a little bit better, but I thought Billy was starting to maybe pull ahead as the fight went on because it looked like Cub was
Hmm.
starting to slow down, and Billy's always known for his cardio, so I think he was gonna start to do better in the later rounds, and then all of a sudden, Cub kind of landed that big shot and put him out.
Yeah, that was at UFC Tampa. I live in Tampa, so I was there. I mean, it was an amazing fight, man.
Yeah, yeah, and a great finish.
Yeah, do you? I believe Cub Swanson was on MMA Junkie yesterday, and he said that he's leaning towards retirement. Do you have an opinion on that? Do you feel that if he comes back to fight, do you think he can still hang based off his last fight, or you just think it's best if he
Yeah,
retires?
yeah. I mean, he can definitely hang. The thing is, if what his goal is, like, he's not gonna fight for a title again, I don't think. So if he's just looking to stay in the sport, maybe get some more wins, I think he can do that. But I think he kind of reached his pinnacle already. And if he keeps fighting, it'd be for the love of the sport. But I don't think he's going to be getting into the top five and challenging for a title.
Sure. Do you just think he's just? Why do you think that? Just because of his age, or just because of the way the division is moving with Ilya Taporia moving up, and there's already people not in line for a ranking, but people that have coming off more wins, like Steve Garcia or I forget what his name is. Um, I mean, Josh Silva just got in the rankings. William Gomez, Hyder Meal. You just think that they should be able to get the next shot over him for rankings?
Yeah, and I think just his skill set now. I think he's got a great skill set. I
Hmm.
think he's just a little bit older, starting to slow down a little bit. So some of these kind of young and up and coming guys, I think are just going to be a little bit too much for him.
Yeah, I mean, do you believe it? Like how you said with the age, do you believe that the older you get, like not the more skill you lose, just like the less damage you could take, or do you think it just depends on how often you fight?
I think it depends on how much damage you've taken in your career. So I think Cub's been through some wars. He's been dropped. He's been knocked out and stuff like that. So I think that adds up. Think as you get a little bit slower, depending on your style, you tend to lose a little bit of the fast twitch and the
Yeah.
explosiveness and stuff like that. So at a weight class like 145, everybody's explosive and fast and stuff like that. So if you get it like a half a second behind, that may be the difference between winning and losing. So I think once you kind of get over 35, 36, that stuff starts to slow down unless you're like a Khabib or something where you're going to wrestle a lot. I think
Hmm.
that a little bit of a loss in the fast twitch can really affect you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. UFC 314. We had Volkanovski versus Lopez for the vacant title. Ilya Taporia moving up. What are your thoughts not only on the title picture but on the whole featherweight division compared to the McGregor era or the Aldo era? How do you think the skill in this current featherweight division matches up to the different ages of the featherweight division?
Yeah, I think we're definitely in the highest skill level right now. I think Ilya is obviously the best, and him moving up to 155 obviously takes a little bit away from the featherweight division. But the featherweight division is so stacked right now. We've got so many guys coming up, and so many kind of veterans in the top 10. It's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen with the title fight because Volkanovski's been around forever. He's already beat a lot of those top guys. So
Hmm.
we'll see, if he's going to end up facing guys like Silva, and who else is coming up. because yeah, I think the rest of the top kind of five, top 10, a lot of them Volkanovski's already beat. So it might slow down the top end of the division, but we still got so many, stars in the featherweight division. I think it's still, going to be one of the most skilled and popular divisions.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the division, not even people in the rankings, when you look at like the prospects, do you look at certain fighters and say, "Oh yeah, they could be like I could see them being the future greatest featherweight or just the future best of the division?" When you look at the rankings or even outside the rankings, do you look at certain people and think this is the future of this division?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Even Diego, I was really looking forward to see him fight Volk because I was kind of interested in how his style would match up.
Hmm.
I don't know if Diego put on his best performance. He looked, a lot more hesitant than he has in a lot of his other fights. Now, maybe that was because he was doing a 5 round title fight. It's hard to say, but I think Diego still has, some potential and skill there that we didn't see in his title fight. So I think he's going to win a couple more and be back up there.
Is there anybody else that you look at? Maybe someone like a Lerone Murphy or a Evloev. I know they get hate a lot because they're sometimes boring, but do you care about that? Like, do you think that matters when it comes to just skills, even if you're boring, if you're winning, does it matter what does it really matter what the people say?
Not necessarily. I mean, it matters for your career because if you're boring, it's going to take you a lot longer to get up to the title shot, even if you are winning fights.
Hmm.
I watched, Josh Emmett and Murphy, and yeah, it's just
Yeah.
with the movement and stuff. I think he did the right thing to beat Emmett. Just yeah, like you're not winning any fans by winning the fight that way by kind of with a lot of movement, and some people think he's kind of trying to run away when really he's just being evasive because Emmett has so much power. But yeah, it's going to be a longer run for him to get to the title, but he's undefeated, and I mean he's obviously up there. Maybe him versus Diego would be a good fight to see, who the next challenger would be, or him versus Silva. Probably him versus Silva would be the best shot unless they want to put one of them up there right now, right away against
Yeah.
Volkanovski.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of people say Lerone and Silva, and I believe Lerone said no because he doesn't think Silva earns it. Do you think it matters? If because Silva is in the rankings with Mitchell and he should fight up. Do you think because of Laron's style, with people thinking him boring, do you think that makes him? Do you think he should fight down because of his style, or do you think he deserves a fight up because he's obviously winning?
I mean, it's up to the UFC, and I don't know how much weight the UFC even puts into the rankings because Dana White's, been pretty vocal about some of the rankings and the pound for pound and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
so we'll see what happens. I know they're talking about having Meta do a ranking system, and we'll see what that looks like. But I know the UFC is they're gonna kind of do whatever they want anyways. I mean, sometimes they bring in people and shoot them right up to the title. It's so they'll do what they want. It doesn't whatever Murphy wants, it doesn't really matter. If the UFC says you're fighting Silva and he says no, then the UFC is probably gonna, he's not gonna be fighting for a title anytime soon if he's turning down fights.
okay, I see what you're saying. I mean, let's take a little break from the featherweight division. Do you when it's fight week or in fight camp? I know some fighters meditate. I know some fighters do ayahuasca. Or they do like certain things to help them prepare on fight night or fight week. Do you do anything special, or like how do you get into that zone the night before the fight, or even backstage, or just in fight camp in general? Is there something specific you do to really help you stay mentally strong?
Yeah, I mean a lot of visualization. It goes hand in hand with my training. When I'm doing sparring and stuff like that, sometimes I'll go through some visualization as if I'm going into the fight. I'll spend some time, once I know who my opponent is and what they like to do, I'll spend some time either, putting myself in situations that they're good at and working out of, and I'll visualize those situations as well and how I would, capitalize on certain things. So I would definitely say a lot of visualization. Some people call that meditation. Some people have different names for it. I think it's a lot of the time it's generally the same thing.
I mean, dang, I forgot like what I was going to ask, but it has something to do with the weight cut. But what do you do for weight cuts? Like, I know some people like completely fast, and some people like select their diets throughout the day? Is there a certain way you cut weight while staying hydrated and staying like fueled with food in a sense? Well, not fueled, but like staying healthy.
Yeah, I mean, in the training camp, we just restrict calories, and then we strategically place when I'm going to be eating protein or carbs or whatever. In the week of the fight, I used to not eat very much, and I think that contributed to kind of some of my earlier performances. Now I eat throughout the fight week and even a little bit of the weight cut, and that way my muscles are fueled and replenished and ready for the fight. So.
What does that look like? Like how many meals is that a day? Two, one?
It varies a lot depending on where we're at in the training camp. Every day is a little bit different. If it's going to be a heavy day, or we're doing a lot of wrestling and jujitsu, or if we're doing striking, then we kind of match how many carbs I'm going to need versus how much protein and stuff like that.
I mean, do you and also like with your camps, do you have a certain amount? Like I know some people want it like 8 or 9 weeks. Do you have a certain amount for a full camp? Do you have a certain amount of weeks that you would like or you would need to prepare for a fight?
I mean, I like kind of 8 to 12. 2 to 3 months is great for me. But I can do a little bit shorter. But I think where I'm at in my career, I'm kind of overtaking the 2 or 3 week notice fights. I did some of those earlier in my UFC career, and just with my size and cutting down to 145, it's just not really possible. And I mean, I can do it, but then we don't get you don't get a performance at all. I kind of
Yeah.
ruin my body before it. So an 8 to 12 week camp is usually best for me.
Yeah, you just said your size. Like, what's your walk around weight? Like, like, how much do you usually cut in a camp?
It varies. Sometimes if I'm doing back to back fights, I'll walk a little bit lighter, or if I'm sometimes I'll do like a triathlon, or I'll be training for other stuff, and I'll stay a bit lighter. So
Hmm.
it could be anywhere between the 160, 175, anywhere around there.
Yeah, that's not that bad compared to like some other featherweights. I forget who it was. I think Ilya. I think Ilya said he walked around like 190, which is insane if you're fighting at 145.
Yeah, and he's not a very tall guy either.
Yeah, I think he's like what 5'7", I think 5'8".
Yeah, I thought 5'6" or 5'7", but yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I mean, what do you make of Ilya Toporia's featherweight career? Because he believes he's the greatest featherweight of all time with the two wins over Volkanovski and Holloway. But do you think because of Volkanovski and Holloway having more title defenses than he did in the featherweight career, and while having the featherweight title, that still puts him above, that still puts them above Ilya within the pound for pound of featherweight goats?
Uh, I know. I think Elia just hasn't done enough in the division. I think he's probably the best featherweight right now. But
Hmm.
again, like Max in his prime, he was a champ forever. He beat guys like Aldo and arguably, I thought he beat Volk. I think in the first fight. I think maybe even the first and the second. I know they're really close. So I still have Max probably as the goat of all time. Now with Volk kind of making another comeback at featherweight, I think he could surpass Max. But yeah, Ilya just didn't spend enough time, didn't have enough title defenses. So yeah, I think he's probably the best right now, but not the best of all time.
Do you think Ilya deserves to get the Makasha fight immediately when he goes to lightweight, even though he doesn't really have the championship?
Yeah, I mean, again, sometimes like when Connor moved up, he got a title shot right away. It's going to end up being whatever the UFC wants to do.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it. I think the higher end of lightweight is a lot of the same guys that have kind of been fighting each other a bunch. So I think some fresh blood into the division won't hurt. And I think, I wouldn't mind seeing him do one fight before going for the champ, but I don't think it makes that big of a difference.
Yeah, I know Dustin Poirier said a couple of days ago he texted Hunter Campbell for the Ilya Taporia fight when he heard Ilya was moving up to lightweight, and they said no. It was like they said they wanted him fighting Max Holloway. which is insane to me because that fight would have been so good.
Mm.
But I got two more questions for you, man. My first question is what advice do you have for the up and coming UFC fighters or up and coming MMA fighters or even boxers that are still don't really understand the weight cuts or don't understand how to get through the nerves? Like, what advice do you have to help them, maybe understand the game a little more?
I think having a good coach is probably gonna take care of most of that for you. So a good coach, talk to your training partners, anybody that's got more experience than you, they'll always have something that you can take and learn from. So those are kind of the biggest key pieces. And then, I mean, showing up and working hard, you're going to learn a lot on your own, just being in the gym with all those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an amateur boxer, so I'm not trying to go pro or nothing, but I want to compete. But my final question for you is, what do you make of the Canadian MMA scene right now with the likes of Mike Malott, Jasmine Jazavizius, I feel like Ayman Zahabi, yourself, what's his name, Hakeem Dawodu, all these Canadian MMA fighters coming up the scene right now, Marc Andre Barrios, and what do you make of all you guys putting Canada on the map?
Yeah, I think we're really kind of turning around. Once George kind of retired, there was a little bit of a lull, at least for the UFC. And then obviously through COVID, we didn't have
Mm-hmm.
any UFC in Canada for a long time. And then when we did that show in Vancouver, we hit a shutout. We all won our fights. Jasmine's on a run. Mike, we had that fight against Neil Magny, kind of hit a bit of a road bump, but he's back on,
Mm-hmm.
back in the winning track and stuff. And like he's doing well. So yeah, I think it's a great time for Canadian MMA, especially in the UFC. So now we just, we need more shows coming to Canada.
Yes, sir, man. I believe they have one next month, right? UFC 315's in Canada, I believe.
Yeah, May 10th.
Do you like that they're coming to Canada every year? Do you think that just helps the Canada scene even more with the UFC coming to Canada every year? Because I know that
Yeah,
wasn't a
absolutely.
thing.
I think it would be nice if they came like 3 or 4 times a year. Canada's
Yeah,
pretty big, so we could do, a show or two out east and a show or two out west and maybe one in the middle. So I mean we got enough fans and stuff and now we've got enough fighters to fill cards.
yes, sir. I appreciate your time, man. Thank you, Mr. Kyle Nelson. Everybody, thank you for coming on the channel. Appreciate you, man. God bless.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Have a nice one.
You too.